Welcome to This Week in South Carolina. I'm Gavin Jackson. Last week, 5 women state senators, Katrina Shealy, Margie Bright Matthews, Mia McLeod, Sandy Sin, and Penry Gustafson, were awarded the JFK Profile and Courage Award for their bipartisan efforts to stop a near-total abortion ban in the state Senate. We talk with Senator Shealy about the award and the work of these sister senators. But first, Congressman Jim Clyburn joins us to talk politics in Washington, from a new speaker to the war in Israel. Congressman Clyburn, thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, sir, before we go to Congress, let's go to the campaign trail really briefly. Minnesota Democrat Congressman Dean Phillips announced he is running for president against President Joe Biden. We're less than 100 days away from the first in the nation South Carolina primary, and Phillips is already registered for the New Hampshire primary, which Biden will not because of the calendar, and South Carolina has jumped New Hampshire. That's been approved by the DNC at Biden's request. But you're a co-chair for Biden's reelection campaign, so I think I know the answer to this question, but does Phillips's bid matter at this point?
Well, I don't know why Dean Phillips has gotten into the race in this manner. The fact of the matter is he is showing tremendous disregard for the titular head of the party. He is violating the Rules Committee because it has laid out what the sequence ought to be. And he is showing a lot of disrespect for the voters of South Carolina. We know what the history of these kinds of things is, and it's very clear. Anytime you have this kind of insurgency taking place with a sitting president, it is not fared well. And it's on both sides of the aisle. It happened to Jimmy Carter when Teddy Kennedy challenged him. Carter lost in the general. It happened to George H.W. Bush when he was challenged in the primary. He lost in the general election. You come down through history, and that's been the case. So I wish that Dean Phillips would take a look at what he's doing. And it's not that he's representing any group of people. He seems to be on a vanity trip, and that's all.
Congressman, let's jump to Congress, where you are right now. The Biden administration is pushing a $106 billion supplemental funding bill for national security issues, including the wars in Israel, Ukraine, as well as the southern border in Taiwan. Should this funding bill be split up? Will this bill pass without being split up?
This bill should not be split up. And you see what's going on in the Senate in a very bipartisan way. I don't think the country has seen in recent years the majority leader of the Senate, in this instance, the Democrat, and the minority leader of the Senate, the Republican, Mitch McConnell and Schumer, are on the same page. And we hear them speaking out very forcefully that this should be a package that moves forward in unison. And so for the House, the new speaker, to split this up and condition the aid for Israel is beyond anything this country has ever done. It shows a lot, I think, disrespect for NATO and our allies around the country. And if we were to do this, we will be losing our standing on the world stage.
So sending a negative message to not only our allies, but also to these enemies as well.
Well, absolutely. No question about it. This will be viewed by a lot of people as being some kind of a bow to Putin and the Russians. And that, to me, should be of concern to all Americans.
Congressman, we saw Republicans this week try and censure Michigan Democrat Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib over her comments and actions related to the growing Israel-Hamas conflict. The resolution was defeated with 20 Republicans joining the Democrats. What is your message to the more progressive left wing of your party amid this growing conflict?
Well, you know, everybody represents their constituent. Tlaib has been elected by her constituents in Michigan, and she is representing them the way she thinks they want to be represented. That's not for me to conduct herself. I do the same thing in the 6th Congressional District of South Carolina. She doesn't agree with everything that I do, and I may not agree with everything that she does. But we really ought to reflect our constituents. I try very hard to do that.
Congressman, House Republicans were in disarray for several weeks, and thus the House was as well without a speaker. Then Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson was elected. Will there be any way for Democrats to work with Speaker Johnson? Any common ground that you see at this point?
Well, I would hope so. I'm not too sure that we can. People talk about benevolence and demeanor. He has a very pleasing demeanor. But I'm concerned about his thought process. I'm concerned about his beliefs. I'm concerned about his practices. I grew up in a parsonage, so nobody had to tell me what the Bible teaches. I know all books of the Bible very well, and I know what's in that book. But I also know that in that book, we are told that it's not their word that should matter, it's their deeds. So what he says will not matter to me, and he should know the book of Matthew well enough to know that it's his deeds that I'm going to be looking at. And so far, I don't like what I've seen.
Yeah, and time will tell. Will the government shut down come November 17th? Talk about deeds and moving forward and just the chaos we're seeing out of the Congress most recently.
I certainly hope not, but there are forces within his conference that seem to want that to be the case. I hope he doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Congressman, just switching over to the Senate really quick, we're seeing a lot of heat being applied by fellow Republicans to Alabama Senator Tupperville there, who's holding up those promotions for military leaders. What is your thoughts on that? Do you think that America is not as secure as it should be when you have hundreds of folks in the military not moving? You have people doing multiple jobs. The commandant of the U.S. Marine Corps had a heart attack apparently because he was trying to do too much work because of this. What message is that sending globally right now?
No, Tuberville is one of the biggest disgraces I've ever seen come to the Congress. He sits in the Senate with absolutely no understanding of what the Senate is all about. I'm not too sure he had a good understanding of what football was all about. Football is about character building. I think he was all about having a winning record. I've talked to people who played for him, and he was never about character building. So this guy has just been a failure on all fronts, and he's been a real failure in the Senate. Now, I don't always agree with Lindsey Graham, but I do often agree with him, and this is one of those times when I do very well agree with him.
Mm-hmm. You see it putting America at risk when it comes to national security?
Yes, absolutely, but Tuberville wouldn't understand that. He doesn't know what national security means.
Congressman, we have a few moments left, and we thank you for your time. I want to ask you about the economy. Americans remain concerned about the state of the economy, though it remains red hot, including strong GDP numbers for the third quarter, and unemployment is at a record low here in South Carolina. It's also low nationwide. But inflation still persists, and there's increased interest rates to help fight that. Does this concern you? Do you think we're on the right path to tackling persistent inflation right now?
Yes, I think we're on the right path, but I don't think we get much help from a lot of people on the other side of the aisle when it comes to this. If you ask people, are you in a better place today than you were 5 years ago? The answer is a resounding yes. I get it from people. Now, if you say the president should be held responsible for what the Middle East oil oligarchs are doing. We remember just a few months ago when they decided that they would cut down on production of oil in order to run the price up. The president can't do much about that. But when it comes to inflation on, say, medicine and those prices, the president stepped in and says, I can't do something about the inflation here, and so I'm going to cap insulin, for instance, at $35 a month. My late wife was paying $800 a month for her insulin. And to cap it at $35 a month, that fights inflation. And he's done that across the board in other things as well. And so this president is fighting inflation. And just because people say, well, I'm paying a few more cents in gasoline taxes, Well, how many more cents less, dollars less, that you're paying for your medicine? Nobody wants to measure that. They only want to measure that which is a negative. So I say all the time, we should accentuate the positive because it's good to eliminate these negatives. But we don't want to do that because those won't give us headlines, and therefore people won't talk about it.
Congressman, with about a minute left, I want to ask you about poll numbers and Joe Biden's stance going into the election in 2024. Are you concerned at this point, we're almost a year away from Election Day, about where Joe Biden stands in the polls, how he's doing at this point?
Yes, I'm concerned about that. But I was concerned when Bill Clinton was at the same point and polling the same way. I was concerned about Barack Obama. At this same point, he was polling the same way. And both of them came out victorious 12 months later. I think the same would happen here.
Gotcha. Congressman Jim Clyburn, thank you for your time and thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Lexington Republican Senator Katrina Shealy, thanks for joining us this week.
Thanks for having me. It's always great to be here.
So, Senator, you and the 4 other female senators in the Senate, 1 Democrat, 1 Independent, and 2 other Republicans, along with you, make up the Sister Senators, as they're known, and y'all won the John F. Kennedy Profile and Courage Award this year. The organization awards these awards for public servants who have made courageous decisions of conscience without regard for the personal or professional consequences. And in this case, it was because y'all stood up to protect abortion rights during the debate last fall and then this spring amid criticism and promises of primary challengers next year, I should say. I was there covering that debate. You were there on the floor day in, day out. It was a very intense debate. Tell us, how did you view your actions at that time? Would you say they were courageous, or how did you view your fight?
I don't think I was any more courageous or did anything that I wouldn't have done anyway. I think what we showed more than anything else was how we could work together across party lines. It wasn't so much about the issue as it was the fact that 5 women from different parties with different views. We don't all feel the same way about that issue. You know, some of us are more pro-choice than the others. Some think we should have, I introduced a 12-week bill, and some want, less time. I mean, more time. They want first trimester 15 weeks, some want more. We're all pro-life. We all believe in that there should be an opportunity for the baby to be born. Nobody thinks that we should use abortion for birth control. There's none of us that believe that. And we've been pegged with being baby killers and all this stuff, and that's not true. We don't deserve that. But I don't think any of us did anything courageous. We did what we thought was right. But that's the fact that we received this award is a great honor. And I don't think there's anybody in that chamber, had they been given the opportunity to receive the JFK Profiles and Courage Award, would have turned it down for any reason.
Mm-hmm. Now, Senator, the crux of that debate was a near total abortion ban bill that the House passed that y'all helped block in the Senate, along with some other Republicans, some male Republicans. What limit would you support? Where do you see, what would you have supported? I mean, the 12-week, we were at 20 weeks as a state, and then we got kicked down to 6 weeks with the current bill that was upheld by the state Supreme Court. Where do you fall in all this?
I fall at 12 weeks, and I offered that amendment, and that amendment lost with the 21-23 vote. And I think that if everybody in that chamber would really step up and be courageous and vote their real convictions or how they felt when they talked to their wives and their daughters, I think we could have won that 12-week amendment. But people are afraid of the next election or what's going to happen. But I think you have to vote your convictions, what you truly believe. And, women's health care in South Carolina is we're just at rock bottom. And, how we take care of babies after they're born is it's abysmal. That's the word I used in my speech. We don't take care of children after they're born. We worry more about how women carry the baby in before they're born. And I think it's time for men and legislators to let women make healthcare decisions for themselves. Now, do I think full-term abortion should be allowed? No, I don't. I don't think a third trimester, I don't think those are right, because by then you should know, what you wanted. But we are being ridiculed for something that I don't even think people understand, and they're taking it out of context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you've been censured by the Lexington County Republican Party. Are you facing any Republican challengers? I mean, y'all are up for re-election next year in 2024. What's it like between you and the other Republican females, Senator Sandy Sin and Senator Penry Gustafson?
Senator Sin already has announced, someone has announced to run against her, and someone has announced to run against Senator Gustafson. As of yet, no one has announced to run against me. I'm sure there's, someone back there, waiting to come out, and that's fine. Everybody deserves the right to run. They should just run for the right reasons. If you look at my record and the things I've done over the last 11 years, I have passed more legislation to help children and families than anybody else has ever passed in that legislature. And, so they got to run against my record. And my record stands on itself.
Senator, do you think this is an issue that's a winning issue? I mean, I know different areas have different beliefs and are more conservative in other parts of the state, but when you hear folks like Congresswoman Nancy Mace from down the Low Country talking about how this debate needs to shift for Republicans to win, when you see referendums failing in other states, when you see other issues failing related to this, when you hear presidential candidate Nikki Haley talk about a consensus approach versus a 15-week ban, how do you see this debate playing out at the election booth next year?
I think that once people get behind that curtain and vote what they really believe, I think that you'll see how it turns out. I think if we would let the people vote on this issue, which, the legislative makeup is not to the point where we're going to let people vote on it, because I think they're afraid of what the outcome would be. It's just like Kansas. You let people vote how they want to vote, and you're going to find out that it's not the way the legislature wanted. That's why they won't let us do that. So I think that when people actually pull that curtain or get over in their little booth or whatever to vote, they're going to find out that what we did was the right thing. Now, everybody doesn't believe that. And I'm not, saying everybody believes that, because some people truly believe that, a total ban on abortion is the right thing. And that's fine. That's your belief. But I believe some people, and some people in the legislature, are not voting their conviction. They're voting for an election.
Yeah, we heard that from former Justice Kay Hearn, who was on this show in May, talking about how she even heard from some lawmakers' wives talking about how they were not fans of their husbands' votes. So a lot going on there, both behind the scenes and on the House and Senate floors. But should the Senate become more conservative, do you think that there will be another attempt to push through a near total abortion ban? Because that was something that y'all helped block. And, if you do see some people replaced, is that going to happen?
I think that there's always going to be that group of people that want a total abortion ban. I think that as long as we have the right people there, that a total abortion ban is wrong. I mean, that's just wrong. Do I think that it'll pass? They'll have to get rid of a lot of people to pass that, because I think the men that stood with us would still stand with us against a total abortion ban. We're going to have more women. I hope that more women win seats. We may lose some women, but I hope we have women to take the place of other male senators. So we just have to work to get the right people in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we expect to see another Democratic woman, I should say, coming into the Senate chamber from District 19. That was the seat held by the late Senator John Scott. Tamika Isaac Devine is the Democratic nominee for that, and she has a special election in early January, but is expected to win because that is a Democratic district. But do you think that that's maybe a solution here when you see, the representation of women in the chamber? I think with her it would be 13% of that chamber would be women. Do you think there needs to be more diversity to understand this issue? And that's maybe one of the reasons why it's still coming up over and over again?
I think there's a lot of legislation that needs to be passed, because the health care for women and children is, it's in such a state of disrepair right now in South Carolina. We have 46 counties in South Carolina, and 15 of those counties don't have an OBGYN at all. We expect women to have more babies now, because we don't want abortions, but we don't have anybody to take care of these. We don't have the help. We don't have childcare for all these children when the women have them, or men need childcare too. This is not just a women's issue. When they go to work, we need somebody to take care of our children, but we need good childcare. So we need those childcare tax credits. We need, to make sure there's good childcare. It's safe, and make sure everybody's checked out. So there's so many things we need to do. I mean, I could go on. We have a list of upcoming legislation. We've been having meetings all year, through the summer, to let the public come in and tell us what we need. And we take those to heart, and we go in and try and correct the legislation that we need to help the parents and the mothers and the children across the state. So we're ready to go back to work and get these things done, and not keep going back to the same thing over and over again. Let's do something to correct what we've already done, and help those people that we have put in the situations we've got them in.
And Senator, are you hearing positive feedback from leadership? I know you're a committee chairwoman, but what about the leadership in the Senate? Are they willing to push some of these bills through?
Well, I hope so. We've had that committee that's been meeting on the healthy meals all summer, or all session. And hopefully they will let that bill come up where we can feed our children at school. To me, that's an important issue, because children learn better. Teachers can teach when children are not hungry. And sometimes that's the only meal they get all day, is what they get at school. So to pass that bill, and it's not the astronomical number they came up with last year of like 192 million. That was absurd. That was a number that was thrown out there to keep that bill from passing. So the real number is probably in the $50 million range. It might be less than that, but we spend that kind of money on things that are a lot less important than our children. So we need to take care of our children in schools and pass that bill. So I'm hoping that will come up, whether it's my bill, the one I put up last year, or it's a House bill. I don't care how it gets there. We just need to do it.
Gotcha. That's Lexington Republican Senator Katrina Shealy. Thank you for joining us, and again, congratulations on your award.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here today.
To stay up to date throughout the week, check out the South Carolina Lead. It's a podcast that I host on Tuesdays and Saturdays that you can find on southcarolinapublicradio.org or wherever you find podcasts. For South Carolina ETV, I'm Gavin Jackson. Be well, South Carolina.